Hey guys, this is McTogic, and welcome back to another episode of the Translucent Plastics Archive. In today's episode, I'm going to show you one of the Wintel machines that was basically ripping off the Power Mac series and Apple's design philosophy for translucent plastics. And in fact, it's one of the nicest ones too. It's the Compaq Presario. What's translucent about this? Well, the front case. It's not a very nice color. Well, it's a little bit boring. It's quite safe, of course. Windows machines are always safe and kind of corporate. But essentially, this is similar to a graphite color on a Power Mac. You've got the logo listed there. You can see there. The Compaq Presario. This came in a whole bunch of different models, but essentially it was released around 2000, 2001. That was the main time that these were being sold. So let's just take a look at what's actually involved in this machine. There's a few nice design elements. You've got your expandable, you've got your I/O here. You've got your disk, your floppy, the usual stuff from that time. But nicely, you also have a little door here. It's actually a translucent door, which gives you access to two USB ports, which is nice. Most of the rest of the I/O is on the back, though. Power button, there's a little indicator here which tells you the battery, which this has a battery, like a PRAM battery. I don't really know much about Windows computers, but I got this. There's stickers on the bottom, which is obviously one of those Windows things which you just can't get around. It's kind of lame, the ones that say, whatever it says on those things. Pentium inside or whatever, Pentium 3. This is a Pentium 3. There you go. But this is a nice design feature, which Apple never did, which I think is pretty cool. You click this. I remember seeing this on some Windows computers at the time. And what do you get in here? There's a little door, and you actually get access to some disks. It's a little storage space for disks. I've got my install CD of Windows XP here, totally legit, of course. There's another little one there, so you can hold about 3 CDs, I guess. It's not much, but it's something. I mean, if you've got a couple games or CDs you want to listen to, it's a nice place to put them. The rest of the machine is unfortunately and unapologetically beige. You can get access inside the machine from this side. The back is just metal. So, usually they say, we want some design with our machine, but they don't really skimp out, and they kind of skimp out half the way, rather than Apple, which would make sure the back looks nice, just like the front. Windows computers would never bother with that, which is quite a shame. Now, this Compaq Presario actually came in multiple different colors. And by colors, I just mean the front, of course. You still had to get the rest in beige and this, silly ABS, which yellows over time. Mine's a bit yellowed, as you can see. But it came in other colors, yeah. But they're pretty rare. I've been looking for some for a long time, but they really are quite difficult to get. And the reason is that Windows buyers are boring people. Yeah, I said it. Sorry, guys, but Windows buyers are just boring people, ultimately. And so most people bought the stock standard configuration, the graphite one. It's called graphite. I know that's an Apple term. I don't know what they call it. Something like just a neutral gray or something. But they actually sold them in other colors, which were inspired by Apple's jewel tones. So you could get ruby, you could get like an emerald, there was a sapphire. I think the ruby one of this looks really nice. And if you go onto YouTube, or if you go look up on Google Images, you'll find some examples of the Compaq Presario. It's the 5000 series. It actually says 5000 down the bottom here, which you probably can't see, but it's the 5000 series. You can find some other colors of this. I reckon getting one of these in a emerald green or a ruby red would be really cool. I would really, really like that. That would be a nice thing to have. Now, in terms of the graphite coloring, though, it does match quite well to a real Apple graphite thing and display. And what better thing to pair this with than a crusty old Apple Studio display? If you put those side by side, you'll see that they're not a bad complement. Maybe a little darker on the Compaq, but if you look at the back of the Studio display, you'll see that the coloring is not too far off. Now, this Compaq Presario came with a CRT. I haven't shown you the CRT because it's just another boring beige box. It did come with colored speakers. They weren't translucent, but they were JBL, and the quality of the sound is really great. And you would actually connect them up to the CRT. So the CRT would be there, and the speakers would actually slot into the CRT on both sides. Really elegant solution. A lot of cable mess at the back, of course, but the speaker quality was great. And you did get a color match that was fairly close to this. Wasn't brilliant, but it was there. So if you did buy a red one, you would also get the red speakers on your Compaq CRT. It's not a bad CRT, 17-inch, I think 10, 12, whatever it is, 5x4 or whatever. You could get it up pretty high if you tweaked the settings. And the one other thing that was translucent was the accessory keyboard. So this came with it as well. This is the original keyboard for the Compaq. You can see there that, well, the coloring's pretty close, right? It's not bad. It's only up the very top here. This is one of those classic internet keyboards that were being made in the 2000s where you add a whole bunch of extra keys to the top here. The keys are usually pretty poor quality. They're just kind of rubber rather than proper switches or anything. And of course, the rest of the keyboard is just a rubber dome switch, as it is anyway. But you have these buttons like I for internet and a mail button and a, I don't know, music, shopping, and then volume controls, which are nice to have, I guess, a sleep button, all that kind of stuff. It's a USB-powered keyboard, but interestingly, the mouse, which also came with it, this is the original mouse here, no translucent plastics on that one, but that came with PS2. So you can see that they're transitioning away from PS2 at that stage. With the PS2 mouse, still a ball mouse, so a little bit lame, but a USB keyboard, in fact. Though I like Apple's USB keyboards a lot more. They look nicer, and of course USB keyboards that Apple made always have the hub on them, have two USB ports, which is so much nicer to have. This doesn't have that, but it does have that little bit of translucent plastic on the front. And if you bought the Ruby one, you would get the Ruby colored one for the keyboard there. So you can see it's not a bad design idea. It kind of matches the two-tone aesthetic. It's sort of a transition, right? It's a transition from the beige of the 90s, which they're being really safe to keep, but a little bit of color that we're getting from the modern era, the Y2K era, whatever you want to call it. It was a cool time. It was an interesting transition period, and some people may have expected that they would end up going completely translucent and create really wacky designs, but that never really happened. What instead happened is we went back to minimalism after this brief period of fun, back to black and white boxes, mostly black Windows PC boxes, nothing interesting anymore, and of course Apple themselves went mostly towards a white or metal silver aesthetic. So this thing is kind of a curiosity from the past. Do I like it? Not as much as I like my vintage Mac collection, I'll say that, but I'm not particularly wedded to the keyboard. It's not very fun to use, nor the mouse. But I will keep this this Compaq tower. It's nice to have a machine around handy at times if you need to get into a native booting of Windows XP or use a floppy drive or floppy reader or whatever you need. And having that USB on board is also nice. Now, I can't quite just pair this up with this Graphite Studio display because classically, this doesn't have DVI. Of course, DVI was new at the time, but not very well adopted yet. So this does have AGP graphics, which is inbuilt, not a graphics card, but built-in AGP, but the only output is a VGA. So you would have to actually get yourself a graphics card with DVI to actually run this with a DVI Studio display. Of course, the monitor that it was intended for is obviously VGA, but yeah, that's all this had. There's some PS2 on the back, there's CD drive, all that stuff. A spare slot as well. I think that might be for the hard drive, but I haven't really gone too deep into this thing. I'm not that interested in it anyway. Just interested in the translucent look, which is pretty cool, but would be nicer in some other colors. And I encourage you to go check out those online. So thanks for watching. That's another episode of the Translucent Plastics Archive.